One of the problems with married life is that some seasons get like super duper busy.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like those seasons, they don't pull you together. They really push you apart.
Right.
And I think that we have to decide how we then come back together after that season.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Marriage Monthly. We're Gabe and Melissa Kolstad, and we want to help you build a healthy, lifelong marriage. We get together every single month with a podcast designed to just give you practical tips to help you grow in your marriage. And we can't wait to spend some time with you. So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
It's like coming back together after a busy season, reconnecting with your spouse.
Yeah.
And we want to really look at ways we can specifically restructure in those times. So you want to talk to us about that?
Okay, well, this summer was insane in the best way.
Yeah.
So our big kids were here from Italy, our oldest Dawson and his wife Adriana, and they were here for 10 weeks. And so at our house, staying, it was a blast.
It was. Loved it.
And exhausting because, they're a married couple. So they have their own things, their own stuff. And here we are. And everything I'm thinking about constantly is like, meals that everybody would like. And does Adriana need a ride somewhere because she didn't have a car here this summer? And there's all this stuff, making sure everybody's taken care of all the time. So it's almost like you're hosting for a solid 10 weeks.
Right.
Even though they're family, our kids, it's just, you're still on all the time, making sure everybody's taken care of.
We want them to have the best time.
Best time.
And we every day.
And we partied hard. Like we did a lot of fun stuff this summer. I'm not going to lie. It was an awesome summer and I'm tired. But but also our youngest got married. So yay for Caleb and Maria. So they got married. I turned 50. We have this huge party. I mean, it's like, it was just nonstop. There was stuff constantly. We hosted, I'm not even joking. We hosted probably like 40 times this summer.
Yeah, it was super busy.
Like it was a lot. It was a lot. And of course, with that is like extra spending. You're spending all this extra money all the time and trying to keep up with everything. And then, of course, this summer you had some health challenges. You were at the doctor a lot this summer. Gabe threw out his back or something. What was it?
I injured my neck.
Injured his neck. And so it turned into an ordeal. And like literally he couldn't do some of the regular stuff he does around the house. So,
Right. The one thing I managed to do was just fine was she could feed me grapes. I could eat the grapes.
Right.
Yeah.
That was fine. And the fan on you.
I really appreciated the banana leaves.
Yeah. I tried to take care of you.
Yeah, it was nice.
Tried to take care of everybody.
Yeah, obviously.
But at any rate, it was a crazy summer, and that kind of pulls us out of our regular routines, our regular time chilling together, or binge watching Suits, whatever we want to do.
Totally.
We did watch a good show. I'm going to recommend this. What's that show with Jake Gyllenhaal we saw? Presumed Innocent.
Yeah, Presumed Innocent.
Oh man, watch it. It was a good one. Anyways, but yeah, so that kind of stuff.
It's like they sneak up, right? You don't look at a season and go, "Hey, all of these things are gonna. That's just how we're gonna do it." You go like, "Hey, let's have the kids home for the summer," and then you don't realize all the many things that also stack on top of that.
Right.
And sometimes in the middle of it, you're like, I don't know if we can handle this. You have those moments where I don't know. But in the meantime, a lot of normal stuff, like you say, gets sort of maybe pushed aside for a season, which is fine for a season.
For a season,
But the problem is a lot of times we don't have a plan for bringing it back to what we would call normal.
And I think that's what happens a lot of times. And that's why I think couples drift is because you go through a season, then you pop in another busy season, especially when you have young kids at the house and you're constantly in this busy season. And before you know it, you're feeling very disconnected from your spouse. And you're like, oh, what happened? It's been 2 or 3 years and I don't feel connected anymore. I don't really know if I need him in my life or her in my life anymore. That can happen. Yeah. So you got to remember how to reconnect and make each other the center no matter what. I mean, it's great to have kids and have fun and have them in sports and different things, but bite-sized pieces, because if your relationship is drifting because of all that stuff, pull back.
Definitely.
Like pull back some stuff. Anyways, but
thinking about these triggers, okay? Because these are the triggers that these pressure areas are what make, even in some situations, couples snap when when things are wearing thin.
Yeah, they're like, I'm done.
It's time, right? Time is a trigger, where it's like, man, I can barely breathe, and you want me to do what? These are the feelings that we have, right? Money. I mean, it's expensive sometimes in some seasons. You just mentioned kids in sports or whatever activities.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
my gosh, I remember how expensive that can get, and especially now, uniforms, equipment, all the activities, travel, all these things. Money can become a real issue. Energy is one thing. We were just talking about how this last weekend was a busy one for us, and after church on Sunday, we had several other activities, and then we came home and crashed. And Melissa never takes naps, But I
Yeah.
think
You're like, are you going to take a nap? And I'm like, yep.
And I was like, oh, really? I was kind of asking as a joke because
yes.
I'll take a nap every day if you'd let me. But Melissa never takes naps. And so I think it was like a 2.5 hour
I was
nap.
literally worthless the rest of the night. Like, I don't even know if I made, I had Cocoa Puffs for dinner.
Yeah, we had cereal for dinner.
That's right.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I was over it. I was tired.
The other thing that can also go sometimes in those busy seasons is privacy.
Right.
Or real time alone.
Mm-hmm.
And, it can be what I've realized in my own life is that even as positive as this whole summer was, sometimes if you're not paying attention, you get this like low-lying anger that settles in. And you don't know why. Maybe you're a little irritable, but there's this almost resentment building in you because you don't know if this is going to come to an end. And
well, especially for you, I say, because you're an introvert and you don't have any time, especially you're in a house with extroverts.
Well, I call them extroverts.
Yeah. And so for you, there was no time to, but even for me, it was a lot. And I'm an extrovert and I love people. I thrive off that. But for you, I think having your recoup time wasn't happening like you're used to.
But the thing is that I have built that into the morning. And so for me, then it just means I make sure that I'm up in the morning. And, that was there because our house isn't as early as me. And so, it works. It works. Right. I got a couple hours in the morning. So I didn't really have that happening as much this time. I think maybe because I've gotten that like down.
Good.
And I was in a place where everybody else was up a little later. So that for some reason.
Maybe it's just Sunday evenings when you were just done with everybody.
It could have been. You're like, no, you were angry somewhere in there. I know you were. Yeah,
you were angry.
What I've learned is you got to blame your circumstances, not your spouse, because you can get in a situation where you're like, all your whatever it is that your misgivings are, they're directed at that person, not because they caused it, but because they're there.
Right.
And you just
easy
target, but it's the circumstances. And if it's the circumstances, that's good because we can easily change the circumstances if we just pay attention. Right. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, so I was thinking about some solutions about reconnecting, and we were thinking of some verses. And one of our favorites that we've talked about on here several times is 1 Corinthians 7:5. It says, "Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. Afterwards, you should come together again so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control." And we've talked about that so many times because a lot of times when you're busy, one of the first things to go is sex. And when that happens, you start to drift. You just feel distance from each other. And so they're talking about here, come back together. Like, okay, maybe there's a season, whatever that may be, come back together. Like, it's come back together because Satan can tempt you, can get a foothold there. And I think you got to be really careful there when you are not intimate with your spouse. I feel like Satan comes in with other things that can distract you. And then before you know it, you're like, whoops.
Totally.
Whatever that may be. Porn, another person, flirty conversation, wrong conversation on Messenger, reaching out to somebody you shouldn't. I mean, that kind of stuff happens. And it's like you have to keep that intimacy and that communication with your spouse. And I'll just say having sex with your spouse brings you together. So when you're not doing that, I feel like you have this crack for Satan to come right in there.
Yeah.
And so you got to be really careful with that. So that's that passage. And do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I just love the language, basically come back together.
Yeah.
It's like we got to have a plan for that. And another version of that verse actually says, so that Satan won't get a foothold.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think that's very vivid because he's looking for something to grab.
Exactly.
And he's looking to find a way to pull apart your marriage. And it a lot of times happens in the area of sex.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Proverbs 5:19 says, "May you always be captivated by her or his love." Yeah. And I think that's really powerful language, too, being captivated. I mean, when you're captivated by something, it's all you think about. That's your passion. That's your drive. That's your, that's what excites you. So that you're captivated by that person. And I think that's really, really important. So especially when you're drifting away from each other or you're in a busy season, don't let that go away. Always be like, oh, how are we going to get back together? When are we going to get back together? Be proactive in that way, right? Why don't you read the next one? Because you are the poet in the family.
Thank you. All right. My lover said to me, this is Song of Solomon 2:10-13. My lover said to me, rise up, my darling. Come away with me, my fair one. Look, the winter is past, and the rains are over and gone. The flowers are springing up. The season of singing birds has come, and the cooing of turtle doves fills the air. The fig trees are forming young fruit, and the fragrant grapevines are blossoming. Rise up, my darling. Come away with me, my fair one.
I think you've written me poems like that before.
Probably.
My fair one.
From the Bible.
But I mean, I like what it says here. It's like the winter passed or whatever, that time, that season passed. Okay, let's come together again. I mean, I think that's the point of this is like coming back together. My fair one.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thanks. Although you're not fair-skinned.
No, I'm not as fair-skinned, but that's
you're
okay.
fair.
I am fair.
In that way.
Yeah, okay.
Like a fair lady.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, a couple things we thought would be practical ways to really go to work on this because we're coming at this in the fall when we're recording this, and we felt the impact of summer. I'll bet a lot of people did. Summer just tends to be that. Like, okay, we got this short, especially where we live in the Pacific Northwest. It's like, man, it's a go time, right?
Yeah,
It's nice weather.
Make the most
it's
of
not
it.
raining.
You got 3
we're
months.
Going. Yeah. And a lot of people do that.
Yep.
So you might have felt the impact of this too.
Right.
And it's just important for us to go, now what do we do? I want to suggest, number one, draw a line and step across it. I think demarcation lines are really important. And for us, we knew sort of like the moments that we had to really make sure and pay attention to this summer. Obviously, it was the receiving of our son and daughter from Italy. It was our son and daughter's wedding, son and daughter-in-law's wedding, those big moments. And then we kind of knew when the last big push was, right? And so what we've tried to do is then set a line that goes, our season changes here, right? Where we know chaos is reigning until this point. And we know that line, we're going to step across it. And I sort of declared October as recovery month for us. So today's October 1st as we were recording
And
this.
we're going to be traveling a lot this month.
Oh,
so.
my goodness. We're traveling a lot. And we planned
But we
this
like
trip.
that.
Oh, yeah.
That's not draining.
That
That's
is
us
for
together.
That's us together. It's
Yeah.
us rejuvenating.
Yeah.
We get to see new things, have new experiences together, taking time off work. And so we really will have real time together.
Yeah.
And I think that, having a finish line is so important because that's the problem with some of this stuff is you go in these seasons and you're like, I don't know if this is ever going to come to a stop. But if you don't know, because October's recovery month, we have a trip planned, time off work, and when we go on a trip, like we're going on this fall, it's a real time off. Like I will really unplug from work and that'll be really good for both of us. Because you'll know you can count on me being present in the memories and moments and stuff like that, as opposed to juggling a lot of stuff. So I think that's a really important thing. The second thing I would say is do whatever it takes to slow things down back to a reasonable pace. So which means reprioritizing. And so I noticed I'm a goals-driven person. Love lists.
Yes, you do.
Checklists, lists of lists. Love that. Lists of goals and all those things. And so I was looking over my stuff going, this is not going to happen this fall. Not if I'm going to do recovery month and, all that stuff. And so I took one of the big things I wanted to do this fall that I had been kind of feeling behind on and decided that was not happening well in the first place. So what's the big deal if I just punt it to January anyways? So I just kind of moved it, and I noticed that it took a bunch of pressure off. Somebody asked me about that particular thing the other day and they said, so where are you at on this thing? And I said, where I'm at on that thing is I decided that it wasn't worth all the pressure. And I felt like God himself was telling me, chill out about that. It's not the season. So put that aside. That's going till later. And I think you got to do whatever it takes to slow things back down because a lot of people say when things slow down, we're going to go out to dinner again.
Right.
When things slow down, I'll be more attentive. You got to slow it down.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to actually say, what is the most important thing? God, then family, then everything else. And so if it's not God, then family is more important than it. And, I think it's the do whatever it takes that has to happen in order for you to get back to that reasonable pace. And who decides a reasonable pace probably ought to be your spouse, not you. So I think that's where we got to go. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about the pace? How do you feel about what needs to go? What do you need? What do you need for it to feel like a reasonable pace? And we've already kind of pre-established some of those things like number of nights a week that we're busy, number of nights a week that we can have dinner at the table together, stuff like that. So we kind of already know when we've crossed that line. And for us, it needs to be back to that. And so I think we're in a good spot with Recovery Month starting today.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I was thinking about was rebuilding a healthy routine.
Yeah.
Or building, maybe starting over. But building a healthy routine is important. Like you just said, how many nights a week are we going to sit and eat together? When are we going to do a date night? You hear us harp on this constantly. When are we going to do a weekend away? Like, these are important things. Like, get a healthy routine. How many nights a week are your kids out doing sports? You know, I'm like, things like that. Like, figure out the routine and figure out the potholes, the in-betweeners that you can make time, the right amount of time for each other. Because I feel like you just got to be careful being too busy with kids' stuff and your stuff and work and working overtime all the time to get everything done. It's like, pick your time and say, okay, I will only work on this project for this long. And then I'm going to close it up, close the computer, come home, whatever needs to happen, and be present. Because a lot of times we'll just bring work home and just keep going. Or, you know, it's tricky. So I think you got to build a healthy routine, not a crazy fall routine, which it can be.
Yeah.
I feel like summer's crazy because it's not as structured, but then fall comes into this opportunity for you to structure things, but then you overstructure and then you still don't have time for each other again.
Right.
And then here's Christmas and we're starting a new year. 2025 is right around the corner.
Yeah.
So I think we got to be really careful. So anyways,
you just mentioned about like a number of days the kids do things. We had maybe it was an extreme rule, but I'm actually really thankful we did it, is we had our kids only commit to one activity each. At a time. Yeah. Because, you know, we've watched as families have done this multiple sports thing, multiple, you know, instrument thing or whatever per kid. And if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 kids,
oh my gosh,
and they're all going multiple directions, I mean, that is impossible. Nobody can do that. Without like a full-time nanny. And even then, I don't know how you would do it.
And and it's tricky too with teenagers because you have teenagers and they get jobs. They're running to their jobs. And
or
then
you're driving them.
Or you're driving them. So it's almost like you got to be really intentional there because you want your teenager to get a job and learn to work. Work ethic's important and make some money and learn to be responsible. So when you leave the house, you're not, I don't know how to adult at all.
Yeah.
That's important. But at the same time, it's like, well, so when can you have like that one night that's your family night? Like at least that one night or that one day, Sunday, we go to church together. We have lunch together. We do, you know, there's got to be a day where that's got to be your day that you reconnect and connect with each other, talk to each other. I think it's easier when you have younger kids because they're not working. But when you get older kids, you know, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, you want them to work, but then the schedule gets crazy. And like for me, that was really hard because I had a hard and fast rule of 5:30 is dinner time when my kids were being raised. And then they started working. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, you're arguing with their boss.
I'm like, no, they work at 6. No, but no, it was hard for me because I really, really, really valued dinner time. That was our connect time. That was our what's hot, what's not time. And I knew what was going on with the kids' lives. And that was hard when they were later teenagers to kind of release them to start adulting. That was hard, but we still had our times.
Well, even tonight, as we have adult children, they're coming over for dinner Tuesday night.
It's daughter's coming over from East Side. Yeah, I'm excited. So, anyways, and also replace the busy with the things that pull you together. I think if you're going to be busy, like you're going to replace busy with being together. Like yesterday, was yesterday Monday?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yesterday is Monday. Yesterday, we decided to go on a walk together. It was a big old long walk and went over Mad Greek Deli and had some gyros. Super fun.
Yeah, sitting in the sun.
Sat in the sun. Beautiful day. It was beautiful. Tell us more about busy with things that pull you together.
Yeah, I think it's just about taking time for time, you know, to look at your last season if you've been really busy and go, okay, I've been doing what? You know, sometimes you actually got to, I don't know, if you don't keep track of what you do, it's sort of hard to do that sometimes. Yeah. But if you're the person that, you know, you get a calendar you can look back on, or maybe you got lists of stuff or planner or something, and go, how can I slide another task over and put my wife in its place, you know, and go, well, or like you said about working late, you know, how can I replace that with this? And I think it does mean you got to almost like ratchet down the productivity if you've been in hyper mode. You can't live in hyper mode. I think that's kind of the point.
No, you can't at all. Yeah. I think it's really stressful for the person themselves and for the family.
Yeah.
When it's like produce. Well,
yeah.
I mean, and I'm a relational person. Yeah. So for me, my greatest accomplishment was raising kids.
Right.
Because I wanted to raise amazing kids that adult well and that want to change the world. And I've done that. Yeah. They're great kids. Like, I'm super proud of that. And I think I worked really hard at that. That's important to me. But, you know, like productivity, I think a lot of times people that are like driven like you, and I love you so much, But it's like,
and then you said, but. I knew you were going to do that. You said, I love you so much, but.
But what can I do next to do better, be better, do more, that kind of thing. And that can
totally.
that can be really
it's exhausting
hard.
for you to hear that from you all the time.
Exhausting to me. But anyways, but I love it. I mean, someone's got to be the driven one, I guess. But at any rate, I just feel like a lot of times, like I drag you on errands with me because I just want to be with you, that kind of thing. So it's like, just got to steal those moments.
Ross. Just don't take me to Ross.
I know, but we're going to Ross. I like Ross.
I know.
And I found some cool stuff there yesterday. So zippy pippy.
Yeah.
It was good. Okay. You liked it too. I know you did. Don't act like you didn't.
I loved it.
I know. Your face doesn't look like you loved it. At any rate.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
all of this to say.
Reconnect.
Yes.
Yeah. Be intentional.
Be very proactive, insist on it,
Yeah.
And make those windows of busy short. The shorter the better. If it could be a season like summer, that's long. It was long.
Yeah.
Longer than we would normally go, but it was unique for us. Normally, this would have been 3-4 weeks, and then we would have done it.
We even have people in school, you have this. I know some people that are like in nursing school. They're grinding hard, right? And it's a hard season. It's a long, hard season.
You can put little breaks in there and do this,
as
and
you should.
Get right back in. Yeah.
But you got to be intentional about it because busyness will just swallow you up.
Absolutely.
And then you're just like so distant from each other. And like, what happened? I don't know why I don't like you anymore. I don't know you anymore. It's like, wait, what? Be careful with that.
Yeah, be careful. Well, find something you can practice and implement from this.
Right.
And hopefully all of us will be taking steps closer together and reconnecting after a busy season.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. Remember to share and subscribe and join us every single month. This is your counseling session.